Informal groups are needed. They are the platform, they are the eyes and ears of the organization, which will make each and every employee come together, release their ideas. We take care of our employees very well. We don't go and hurt them. We don't go and put them in a tricky situation, in a messy situation. That should not happen. Good morning and welcome to the second session in Unit 5, Organizational Behavior, where we are going to talk about the most important topic, informal groups. We were talking about the group and its effect in terms of management. So whenever we talk about an informal group, it is all the more interesting. Reason is quite simple, because all of us in our life want to be associated with less formal, what I would like to say, informal. Reason is very simple. That this group is not organizationally structured. This group does not have rules and regulation. This group does not have hard and fast rules to be followed. This is a simple group which is formed out of passion, which is formed out of a simple meaning or a reason. So now what happens is that these group members will be having a response for the need for social contact. These are the group members who feel that we need to be connected to a society, we need to be connected for a social cause. So their voice, their opinion, their ideas, their mentality in terms of forming a group is more towards a social objective rather than holding something very, very rigid. Now, for instance, your workplace might have a group of people who get together during the lunch hours to knit and to help each other in a yarn project. Or you might have a group which will just talk about some cultural practices, which might talk about a movie, which might talk about a social event happening in your place. Now, these are groups which are not intending to create anything purposeful. They are not intended to report. They don't have a structure. They don't have something to take it back like a minutes of meeting. They are just forming hands together to have a cultural contact. So I would go ahead and talk to my friend about the latest sporting event that has taken place in the city. Now that has got no intention, that has got no objective, that has got no impact towards the results of my organization. So what I mean by an informal group here is that this is highly intended, this is likable, this is what people want to be with. So whenever you meet in organizations, people who are less formal, the intention, the liking, the need to work in those organizations goes up high. So definitely informal group is one thing which is completely something out of the rules and regulation, and every organization would like to have informal groups within them. Followed by, they're important. Why? Because they exist outside the formal hierarchy of the organization, but the structure of a personal and social interactions. Now, let me just come back to the word called as the social interaction and importance. Sometime when we look back to the history, we are so amazed by the factor that today we have stopped looking into people. We don't want to have that face-to-face interaction. We have stopped it somewhere. We have become socially interactive through the social media. Just understand that entire dynamics here. Socially hyperactive because of the social media. An Instagram, a Twitter, a Facebook, Snapchat, or you're going to talk about WhatsApp or any other platform. What is happening is that though we don't want to crowd ourselves among people, we don't want to go to the house of our relatives, our friends, or any other near and dear, but then we want ourselves to be socially active by participating in various platforms, various communities, various virtual platforms altogether. The reason is that we believe that we have to be a buzz with the news. We have to be on the top of any news that is going to be talked about. We want every single information to be on the top of our mobile phones. So whenever I open my mobile phone, I see a nice news pinging up on the screen saying that, wow, this happened. Now, what is very important here from an organization standpoint is that these groups tend to exist in an organization because they will create a source of information. They will create a source of connectivity among that hundreds and thousands of employees who are working. These employees are getting connected because they don't have a formal structure and they feel that it is important to let out your feelings, let out your emotions, talk about your manager, talk about your system, talk about your personal life, or just talk about the opinion of what's happening in the society today. It might be about a traffic jam, or it might be about a latest movie. It might be about a social abuse that happened, or it might be about winning of gold in the Olympics. But then, informal groups are needed. They are the platform, they are the eyes and ears of the organization, which will make each and every employee come together, release their ideas, release their thought process, and make them feel happy about this factor that yes, the organization is still alive. It's full of life altogether. Now, they tend to motivate each other. Employees tend to do it. Whenever you go to an organization, you will find employees giving tips to another, how to invest, how to reduce weight, how to grow more in mutual funds, how to make your body even more fit, how can you save time, how can you spend more time with your family. You have n number of topics. The topics are endless and the motivation also starts building up with that. Why? Because there are like-minded people who want to talk the same topic that you are talking, that you are intending to understand. In that scenario, an informal group is definitely needed. Whenever your friend talks to you about how to make your body look fit, or whenever your friend talks to you about how to use the best in terms of your free time, then automatically you start building an informal group which starts interacting passionately about the events, about the situation, about the various factors, and then finally you land up making a larger section of people. And this is very important. Why? Because all of us today are stressed out. We need a point, we need a place where we can go, we can talk our mind out. We want to release our emotions. We want to make ourselves feel comfortable that yes, we have been doing something. We need a place, we need a person who can hear us out. So that's why informal groups are mandatory. Followed by, in fact, if one employee in an informal group is subject to an action by the organization and the others see it as unfair, strikes can happen until situation is corrected. Now, this is very, very important for us to understand. One hit on the social platform, one video that pops up on your YouTube talking about a social abusement and harassment, or somebody getting hit, somebody getting penalized for nothing that he have done, the social media becomes the best. The social media just takes it altogether in favor of that employee. I still remember the incident of a Zomato employee being punished, being hit for not of his mistake. It was not his mistake. He got caught up in a traffic jam and he was hit by the customers. A physical hit. The very next moment when that news started pinging up in all forms of the social media, the informal community of every single organization came forward in favor of that employee. The reason was very simple. An informal group will tend to question back the organization if any one of their members is hurt morally, mentally, physically. There is going to be a question mark on the organization. So I always say that if you are trying to go against the social media, if you are trying to go against an employee, if you are going to create a disadvantageous position for any employee in any group, mind you, you are going to be picked up. You are going to be pointed out. So it's very important that we take care of our employees very well. We don't go and hurt them. We don't go and put them in a tricky situation, in a messy situation. That should not happen. So within that group, within the categories, within the formal and informal, there are subcategories. There are people who will come back, who will strike back, who will say that why this is happening. So informal group does have a great amount of influence in the media as well as in the real world. Now, coming to the command group, the next type of group which I would like to talk about, this is an informal group, no doubt about it, but look at the word command group itself, which is determined, which is a formal kind of a group which is determined by the organizational's hierarchical chart, composed of individuals that report to a particular manager. So let me just go back and correct myself. This is a formal group which is actually going to report into a manager. It's a hierarchical. For example, manager of training is a command group of his employees under that particular organizational structure. So when I talk about a command group, you will be able to see that factor. One manager here, surrounded with his employees, he will try to command them. He will try to get the work done out of them. So this is going to be a formal, hierarchical, very, very compressed group which has got certain deadlines, certain reportees, and everything has to happen accordingly. Followed by the task group. This is also a type of formal group, and this term is used to describe those groups that have been brought together, that have been combined together to complete a task. This does not mean, though, it is just a group of people reporting for a single supervisor, but then the most important thing when I say a task group, you are driven by task. You are driven by some activity. You cannot just go forward and say that there is a task which you have to get completed, you have to do it. No, this is a task group which I would like to say where you will see that the task is given more priority. You have to complete the task. You have to go back. You have to report back to your manager and say that the task is completed or not. You cannot take things lightly in a task group. You cannot take things for your advantageous position. The task group is being created for a purpose which has to be completed. And the training group, for example, if I'm going to take it as a task group that will start taking a particular objective, and let's say that there is a training group which takes care of the induction process. So the aim and objective of that company is to induct people, give them that formal training, formal advice of how you need to be a part of the company, what are the do's and don'ts. So in a task group, every single task is formalized, every single objective is being clearly spoken to you, told very clearly that how you need to do it, why you need to do it. So all those formalities have been already put in place. Followed by the training department might provide an outline of how a new employee is brought into the company, but the onboarding task group would include that employee's manager, IT manager who equips the employee with a new laptop, with a new desktop. What are all the functionalities that has to be taken place? So what do I typically mean here is that a task group will take the responsibility of doing the things as that is being told. But then if a task group does not do it on time, if a task group does not take the situation seriously and do it, then automatically then that particular group will be punished for it. So if you are a part of a task group, you are given a particular instruction and you will have to follow it until that work is completed. Followed by the interest group. An interest group is a kind of group which is usually informal, and it's a group of people who band together in order with an objective that each member is concerned. Within the organization, it might be a group of people who will come in for better working conditions, for better factors, or better, facilities altogether. Now, being an informal group, their objectives are slightly on the social side. Their objectives are more on the welfare and the benefit side. So when you talk about an interest group, it tries to draw attention from people who have the common interest to work together to create something more meaningful. So that's why I would call them as an interest group. So the primary objective of an interest group is very, very clear, where they want to understand about the factor that whether we will be able able to create people of like-mindedness where they have the common interest, the common belief that yes, things should be in this manner, we need to work in this manner. So somewhere I'm trying to create a common interest factor. Now, the next thing is that outside the organization, this term is frequently used in political situations. They are used in associations like, let's say, the National Rifle Association, the NACCP, the Kennel Club, or all these kind of association where you will see an athletic association. Now, what they typically tend to do is that they try to gather the interest of people, put it forward in terms of a formal association. But then these are all people who just want to see that whether their interest can be rewarded, their interest can be understood at any given point of time. With this, I come to the end of today's session. I hope and believe that all the information shared through this particular session will be of a great benefit and use. In the upcoming session, we are still going to learn about the different types of group and their impact on the organization. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.